Good morning, everyone. It is now 10:03 Pacific Standard Time. In this video, I'm going to talk about a bit of the economy and the GDP and measuring a nation's income. The media always likes to talk about how the GDP means whether the economy is doing good or bad. It's a good indicator, but it does not always reflect the economy as a whole. The definition of the gross domestic product, i.e. GDP, is that it is the market value of all final goods and services produced in a country within a given period of time. The market value is the GDP that is measured in dollars, not quantities. Market prices are used to determine the value. I'm talking about the economy because we know that according to statistics that the GDP usually makes up about 70% of the US economy. So when the GDP falls for 2 consecutive quarters in a row, that the US or any nation would fall into what we call a recession. This year in 2025, the economy contracted within the first quarter, which is not usually a good sign for the U.S. economic growth. And if it does it for a second time, according to what we learned in my econ class, the economy would then fall into a recession. The tariffs, the unnecessary trade wars that are happening, those are some heavy factors that are causing, I think, the economic slowdown that we are seeing. I also want to mention that that final goods are only included in GDP, not intermediate ones. So the goods that are purchased by the end user are counted towards GDP. The products that are used to make a final good are not counted towards GDP. For example, grapes. Grapes that are already ready and bought at the store and ready to be eaten, those will count as final goods towards the GDP. Grapes that are used in a factory to make wine, those are intermediate goods, which does not count as GDP. And goods that are placed into inventory are counted as final GDP. And we also have the within a country factor. Only production that takes place within a country's geographic boundaries is included in GDP for the country. For example, a U.S. citizen produces in Canada, that is Canadian GDP, not U.S. GDP. A German citizen produces in the U.S., it is U.S. GDP, not German GDP. But another factor that we talk about in economics is the forced spending components of GDP, with the equation of y equals c plus I plus g plus nx. Y equals GDP or y equals income. It depends on how you're looking from it. The C equals consumption, I equals investment, G equals government purchases, and NX means net exports. Consumption is spending by households on goods and services, with the exceptions of purchases of new housing. Does not count as consumption. Investments, spending on capital equipment, machinery, tools, tractors, etc. Inventories and structures, office buildings, including household purchases of new housing. So the housing we mentioned earlier would count as investments. Government purchases, which is purchases made by the federal or state governments. Spending on goods and services by federal, state, and local governments. Transfer payments are from the government. They are not included in the GDP since they are not exchanged for any amount of production. Examples of transfer payments include Social Security, unemployment compensation, or even the stimulus checks that we saw in 2020 and 2021. The biggest government spending items that we talked about in my econ course was Medicare and Medicaid, which is at stake right now because of this administration. Social Security, another thing that's at stake because of this administration. And defense. The U.S. spends more on defense than a lot of other countries. And so as I wrap up this video, I just wanted to give my audience an idea of what the GDP does, how it works, and a sense of how it can impact positively or negatively on the economy.